word entrepreneurship, French origin. It's one of those words that means a lot, means different things to different people. I want to kind of start with this basic question. Carl, what do you mean by entrepreneurship?
Well, Steve's got a taxonomy that I actually adopt.
But Carl writes $100 million checks a year, so I pay attention to him.
Yeah, but you know, actually, in a strange way, Rich, we never actually control the question of what it means. Because, as we were talking about before, you know, people, it's like Teflon in an odd way. People infuse into it, and you know, one of the neat things about it is it won't be grabbed by either political party. That's one of the things that makes it really marvelous thing about it. On the other hand, it's kind of dangerous because every Tom, Dick, and Harry is now saying, "Oh, it's social entrepreneurship. This kind of entrepreneurship is governmental." Tom, worse. On Monday, Lisa Nichols showed me a new federal Department of Labor thing where they actually have a triangle, looks like a food triangle, where they can never get it straight, whether vegetables are more important than legumes or whatever. Okay, but now they have a whole triangle of the composite components of the career of an entrepreneur. And the reason you do this is because they're trying to figure out how to get trainers, the trainers of entrepreneurship studies certified as a career claim in the federal taxonomy of jobs.
Most of the great entrepreneurs around here, Steve Jobs, Larry Ellison, actually dropped out of college, so had no certification, but now it's going to be certified.
So if I can, by the way, the story about Steve Jobs, Larry Ellison, Bill Gates, for anybody here from Google? Right? Okay.
This is Microsoft. They don't let them in.
Because I'm going to tell you Google's story. Of course, to get a job interview at Google, you need to be an A student. You understand that none of those guys, Jobs, Gates, or Ellison, would have even gotten an interview at Google, which I think says a little bit about whether they survive the entrepreneurship war. I kind of think of by the way, the battle in entrepreneurship between Google and Facebook is the A students versus the pirates. And let me suggest who I'd be betting on. The definition of entrepreneurship, for me, came from two very different areas. My parents were immigrants. Came over to the United States, Lower East Side of New York, typical immigrant experience. But their goal in life was to own a grocery store on the Lower East Side. And they did it. They achieved their dream within 10 years. Owned a grocery store, and for them, life couldn't have been better. It was the American dream. They were entrepreneurs. They were startups. But they weren't the same type of entrepreneurs that we think of here in Silicon Valley. And so the other piece of the story is when I started teaching entrepreneurship rather than being an entrepreneur, I found like every class taught by a different professor had a different definition of what entrepreneurship was until I realized we didn't even agree in the university what the heck an entrepreneur is. So let me give you Steve's town. I'll contend that there are small business entrepreneurs. People who start up a small business whose goal is to support the family. And they're happy if they have and find a business model that can support mom, dad, kids, maybe a couple cousins. Their goal is not to take over the universe. Let me give you the opposite extreme. Here in Silicon Valley, we use the word startup and entrepreneur, but we mean something very different. We mean scalable startups. Entrepreneurs from day one who are insane, certifiable. Because how many of you fit in there? Come on. All right, good. Your goal, I know your goal, is to take over the damn universe. Your vision is not to feed the family. Your vision is to grow a company to a couple $100 million. That's what I call scalable startup. Small business entrepreneurship, scalable startup. Some core common things, but very different, and you teach them differently, and you plan differently. And then the other one Carl and I were talking about is that there are entrepreneurs inside of large corporations, which again I used to think of was an oxymoron, but with an emphasis on the second syllable, but not really. I've actually found that a professor 15 years ago, Clayton Christensen, actually got the description of entrepreneurship in large corporations correct. He said there are two types. Sustaining innovation, where you're entrepreneurial around the core product. We're here in Microsoft, version 53 of Word. That's sustaining innovation. But when you try to get in a new business inside of a existing company, outside of your customer base or outside of your technology base, that's disruptive innovation. And what Christensen got was description, but never made the connection that, oh my gosh, disruptive innovation in a large corporation is a startup requiring all the characteristics that are no longer found in that large corporation. And therefore, all the conflicts you're having inside is like you just dropped in a startup and said, oh, by the way, doing all this startup stuff, now you need to fill out the 43 pieces of paper for forms that you need to do every week in a large corporation on top of that. So 3 types of entrepreneurs and startups: small business, scalable startups, corporate